Welcome to the JP Podcast.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications.
Welcome to the JP Podcast. I'm your host, John. And today we brought back Erik because there's something exciting going on with Superman. We wanted to find out why, so let's bring him on.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. How you been, Erik?
Good.
So what's going on with this Superman trailer? I'm watching a lot of reviews on it, and guys are just super excited about it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much excited about it just because they're telling a different story. They're starting over with a new direction with James Gunn at the helm, and he's going to be the face of DC until he fails.
Explain to everybody before you go on, where is James Gunn coming from?
He's from Marvel. He did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He came from there, so he has history in making. I think him and his brother are trying to do what the Fargy brothers did with Marvel. They're trying to create their own universe, create their own stories, put their own spin on it. And I think they hit it out of the park with this movie. I think it's going to be, there's a lot of things that people are going to not expect that's going to happen, and they may not happen, but if in my opinion, if they happen, they're brilliant.
Why do you think it's going to be different than prior movies? What are you seeing with these?
Yeah, just little things. I don't necessarily know if they're going to go over the, hey, this is a Superman story, everybody knows him. I think they're going to show Krypton and the destruction of Krypton, but it's not going to be told as the origin story of Superman. I think where they're going to go is that's going to be how they explain Superwoman into this story and into the next movie that they're making, Superman, Woman of Tomorrow. I think that's where Krypton is going to be described as what happened in that, maybe the opening scene. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that's where it's going to be, because in the timeline of when they both came to Earth, they both left shortly after each other, but she got absorbed into a pocket universe where she led a much different lifestyle. And she also wasn't a child. She was, pretty much a teenager, young adult, where Superman was a child. He grew up entirely here, didn't really know anything about his Kryptonian ancestryhood, but I think she does. And she's going to have a different mindset than Kal-El, maybe in the beginning.
Now, for those who are not fully vested when it comes to the comic books and that, why do you think they picked the heroes that they did for this up and coming movies? Because you notice a lot of them are different than in the past movies.
I think a lot of it has to do with other projects. They use Guy Gardner as this Green Lantern just because they already had the Green Lantern series in a go. They're working on that. So they probably didn't want to introduce them in this movie. So they're like, you know what? In my opinion, we're going to introduce the best Green Lantern, which is Guy Gardner. Then they'll introduce the rest of them in the other series, that the HBO series that they're coming up. A lot of people aren't aware that when the ring came to Earth, it had two options. It had Guy Gardner and it had Hal Jordan. It chose Hal Jordan strictly out of location. One was closer than the other. So that's why Guy Gardner always had a chip on his shoulder. He felt like he should have been the Green Lantern, and he even voiced that when Hal Jordan went bad. So I think they're picking them, and they're also using Hawkwoman because in a lot of her storylines, she comes from outer space. She, Thanagarian, she's from outer space. The Authority is from outer space. So I think it ties in that storyline all together.
Do you think Batman will make an appearance?
Maybe in a cutscene. I wholeheartedly believe they know who they're going to choose, but I don't think they are ready to say that yet. And that's why they're using Mr. Terrific in this movie, because he is pretty much the same as Batman. He maybe not as so much as fighting, but intelligence wise, and he creates his own technology. And so they're using him probably as the detective and the clear head that's going to keep everybody in control, because Shi'ar and Guy Gardner are both really hot-headed at times. So you need somebody on that hero squad that's going to keep everybody kind of grounded and kind of in check.
What about some of the villains?
A lot of people are saying that the guy in the black suit, he's going to be a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, which, is from a comic book story. How and when, I believe that's going to be explained within the pocket universes, that somehow Lex has found or been showed these pocket universes. Whether I think he was showed these pocket universes probably from Brainiac, because Brainiac has a very history with Supergirl and Kandor, the Bottle City. It was property of Brainiac for a time, and that's one of her origins. Everything kind of gets retconned here and there. Everybody adds their own to it, but there is some history there to where they're going, they can explain it that way.
And what is the significance of the kaiju? Those are the villains, right?
Well, so in the kaiju are kind of like, like Godzilla and all that. They introduced them at Starro in the second Suicide Squad movie. So, but it kind of throws back to the earlier times where Superman was created, because there wasn't a whole lot of people that really could hold a candle to him. So he was always fighting like mutated monsters or, overpowered robots or things like that. So I think that's going to be a way to that, for him, somebody to cause chaos. And I think that's going to come from one of these pocket universes that Lex has found.
So when you are going to go see this movie, what are you going in with? Are you going in with an open mind, or are you going in with certain thoughts that I want to see happen? What is your thinking when you go in to see movies like this?
Always I go in with an open mind, but of course, as enjoying comic books the way that I do, I see where they could make connections, and it could be a really good connection. But if they do that or not, it's not for me to say it's right or wrong. It's not my money, it's their vision of the movie. But there's things that they could tie things together with a few of the things that I think could happen, but who knows?
So do you think that these guys, what are they, brothers, the Guns?
Yeah.
Okay, do you think they're going to come in with, some new energy? Do you think DC is going to actually become what Marvel was and they're going to take over? Or what do you think is going to happen with all this?
I don't think they'll take over. I think they're already coming in with a new version of Superman. So for the longest time, every DC movie has been dark and gritty, and a lot of the earlier comic book history wasn't really like that. It was really a lot of cheesy things happening, interactions between superheroes. So, I think that's why they're going back and saying, hey, the reason they named it Superman, because they found out that the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeves was called The Superman. So this is basically Superman 4. They're taking David Cornsworth and they're saying, hey, this is that version of Superman, but in the next progression, they're going to use him. That's why they're doing the underwear, the outside of the pants, so if they're drawing from some of the old and new storylines and they're kind of mixing them together, because like one of the main villains is the female with the nano suit. She's from a group called the Authority, and they are from a more recent storyline. So so they're mixing a lot of old and new storylines together. Justice League International, the old cartoon series, if you remember, the Cartoon Network, that's kind of where they're drawing some of their heroes from, some of their villains, so it's going to be pretty interesting.
When the movie comes out, I
believe it's the 11th.
And what would you tell people like me who not much into the comic books? We just love a great movie. What would you want us to look for? Or if anything, just enjoy?
Yeah, it's mainly just enjoy the movie. Enjoy the story that they're trying to tell, and don't judge it against the other Superman movies. Henry Cavill, I wholeheartedly believe that he will be back, and they will probably be in a storyline kind of like Thanos, kind of like he's the big bad, but I think he'll play a evil version of Superman.
Oh, nice.
And Zack Snyder set it up with him turning evil, with the potential becoming working with justice or dark side. So I think that that vision or version of Superman turning evil is already there. So now you have a new Superman, and that there's a multiverse, there's pocket universes in both DC, Marvel. So I think that is probably a storyline probably within the next maybe 5-10 years. It takes them a while to make the movie. So I would say 5 to 10 years, I would see Henry Cavill back as a version of Superman, or earlier. I would just take it as that. It's a storyline about a superhero that everybody knows, and just go from there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be back. The movie, we're going to do another video, and you're going to go over on everything that happened within the movie, and we'll see if you were right, because I believe in one of our past episodes, I'm going to find the clip and play it.
Do you want to start all over again? We don't need a new Superman movie every 10 years.
Yeah.
Where you tell us hey, this is where this guy comes from.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need a new Batman origin every, you know, every 10 years. They need to start introducing other characters that can fill in some of the gaps that they have.
You had said if they ever make a new Superman, you hope they don't go back and retell the same story over and over and over of him coming from Krypton as a kid, and you wanted to move on because there were the other things about Superman that they were not telling.
Yeah, I mean, the story's been told numerous times through, you know, every publication. There's a new version currently out now that they have really changed a lot of the Superman origin, but that's for a different show. But they don't need, just like you don't need every time you start a Spider-Man movie, you don't need to retell how Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Pretty much for the most point, everybody knows. You know, maybe small children don't know, but they're not going there they just want to see Spider-Man. So most of the people want to see Spider-Man. That's why I think that in this movie, when they show the destruction of Krypton, and I don't know if you want to get into spoilers, put the little spoiler up across the screen, but I think when they show Krypton being destroyed, it is going to be when Kara is leaving Krypton and she's intercepted by Lex Luthor or someone else. I think she works for Lex Luthor, because in the comic book story, there is a clone that Lex Luthor made of himself and Superman and made a version of Supergirl. I think that ties in. It definitely shows you, like, when a lot of the fight scenes, like when Superman is fighting the one bad guy that's in the golden armor, the armor of Barovia, you could clearly tell that somebody in there has heat vision. So I think that Supergirl is inside of that suit of armor, and she will get released. But a lot of people think it's either going to be Lex Luthor in there, but he doesn't have heat vision, you know, or it could be the Bizarro Superman. We'll just call him Bizarro Superman, because that's what I think that, you know, a lot of people are referring to him as Bizarro Superman. I think that it could be one of them. For me, I don't think they are going to introduce Supergirl in a end credit scene, coming saying, hey, I'm here to pick up my dog, you know, because, you know, in the movie, Kryptos ends up going with her. You know, everybody's saying that Clark is kind of babysitting because Superman came to Earth by himself. Kara came with Krypto, who was Clark's dog on Krypton. So I think that if Krypto's here, she's here somewhere too. And she's probably working with Lex. Lex probably has her fooled, maybe thinking, you know, saying Superman's bad, look at, you know, what he's doing. And I think that's why Lex is in Barovia. I think that's why Lex goes to Barovia and he starts the war, only because maybe he finds kryptonite there, or he finds her wrecked spaceship there, or somehow, some way he gets some form of kryptonite, because they show in the Pocket Universe, Metamorpho is morphing himself into kryptonite to keep Superman under control. Well, he can't just create something that he has never touched before. So he's had to have some sort of access to kryptonite, which then he can replicate to make Superman work. You know, because I think in the movie, the way they're saying it, Metamorpho is probably going to start off as, you're going to think he's a bad guy, but I think maybe Lex is probably holding him prisoner too. He'll be a good guy at the end of it. You know, he'll be on the Justice Gang or whatever they call it at that time. You know, maybe at the end of that, they call it the Justice League, or not really sure, but anyway they do it, I think that's where he's gonna come in there. And then that's gonna lead into the next Superman movie, or the Supergirl movie, where she goes and has to discover who she is, you know, because she's not from Earth and she's no longer from Krypton because it's not there, so she don't know where she belongs, and they'll tell that story of her. I think that movie will probably gross more than this movie.
All right, Eric. Well, I'm very excited and looking forward to the movie, and we'll catch you on the other side of the movie and see if you had everything right, or, you know, how close you were with your predictions. But thank you for coming back on the show, and
oh man, anytime.
Always a pleasure to have you. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys later. Have a good one.